I'm bored. Let's read a book. Oh! In a way, following the coach tracks was a relief. At least, I knew that Antonin wasn't tracking me directly. But then, I wasn't sure that he even knew I, Laris, existed. The other thought, even more disturbing, was that he really didn't care, that nothing I had done mattered. Even worse was the thought that perhaps my actions had actually benefited the White Wizard. I frowned at the thought. Antonin had only seen my face once, in a crowded inn, and he'd never heard my name. There would have been nothing to connect me to the ordered woodwork, or even to the disasters I had created in Fenard. So all that he probably knew was that someone was working in order in Gallus and Kyphros, someone strong enough or lucky enough to destroy a White Wizard. That destruction I still did not understand fully, except how close I had come to being destroyed myself. Nor did I understand why Antonin had not immediately set out for me. I could only shake my head and press on. Gerlach dutifully carried me onward until we were clearly into tree-covered rocks of the Little Eastthorns. Steep hills I would once have considered mountains. The way I viewed a number of things had changed. Around midday, when I was looking for another stream, or at least a shaded place, we came down another incline into a small dry valley. Gerlach skittered slightly. Underfoot, the surface seemed flatter, and I looked around. On the right was a thick grove of shrub juniper bushes. On the left was a large and whitish boulder. I reined Gerlach to a halt. He whinnied. My spine tingled as I studied the rock that looked so different than any other rock along that dusty road. I glanced toward the scrubby off-green of the junipers. Felt the same way. Something. I closed my eyes and concentrated on sensing what was really there, or as it turned out, was not there. Neither the juniper nor the boulder was really there, just the semblance of each. Behind the semblance was the flat white surface of another wizard's road, one that flew as straight as an arrow down a narrow valley that appeared to stretch east, from the Westthorns all the way to the Eastthorns. How many of the danged roads had the old Chaos Masters built? Was that how they had held together their evil empire? How had the collision lasted so long? Then I felt stupid as I thought it out. The road was old, but not the illusion. Antonin and his coach, they used the road. No wonder he seemed to be everywhere. Then I began to look at the coach tracks. There weren't any. Something had smoothed them over. None ran down into the valley, and none ran out. But they had led to the crest of the hill behind me, so the Chaos Master didn't want his secrets noticed. I smiled briefly and flicked the reins. Let's go. Before riding on, I noted where the road ran for future reference. The road wasn't evil, just its uses. We spent another night in the Little Eastthorns, up another narrow canyon with a stream that did not merit the name, and even less grass. Gerlach had almost finished off the last of the grain cakes, and I began to worry whether I would have the coins necessary for food once we reached the more inhabited sections of Kyphros. I washed out one of the underclothes I had laid them on the rocks, wringing them dry, wondering as I looked over the overhead clouds of gray whether I should have done so. After sunset, the thunder rumbled like coach wheels down a canyon road, like Antonin riding forth and sowing destruction across the Vale of Cretia. And I thought that was the name of the place where I'd met the White Wizard. And if it weren't, well, one name was as good as another. The flashes of lightning hid behind the clouds in the northern half of the sky, backlighting those dark sky mountains. For all the thunder in the heavens, the air remained warm enough that the light breeze was welcome. I ended up tossing off the cloak and lying on the bedroll barefoot, sleeping in just shirt and trousers. The rain promised by the thunder did not arrive, and in time the clouds overhead vanished, and the stars shone like tiny lamps in the sky, clearer than I had seen them since I landed in Freetown, and nearly as clear as on a midwinter night in Recluce. Dawn crashed down on me like a tide of light, or so it seemed, with the red ball of sun bursting from a dark sky within instants. With no reason to tarry, Gerlach and I headed onward and downward. Being on the southern side of the Little Easthorns made a difference in one respect. Kiefer's was warmer, a lot warmer, and drier. Even with just the shirt and no tunic, I was sweating, and it was well into fall. What the place would be like in summer, I wasn't sure I wanted to find out. Each step Gerlach took on the hilly road toward Kiefer raised a reddish dust. Orchards seemed to prevail on the hillsides, orchards and grapes. The trees were two kinds, gnarled olive trees with small pale green leaves, and some sign of fruit, which was unfamiliar. There might have been several related types or different varieties of the same type. Whatever they were, the greenish fruits all grew on low-spreading trees with dark green leaves that might have been too shiny, except for the autumn dust. Some of the green fruits seemed to have an orange color mixed with the green, but since none of the trees were that close to the road, I really couldn't tell. Unlike the stone and red oak houses of the northern principalities, the houses of Kiefer were white, but it wasn't the white of chaos, just a soft off-white painted over timber and stone and plaster. The roofs were mostly of red tile. Gerlach whinnied. "It's hot and you're thirsty, so am I." We kept riding, but only until the next crossroad, which consisted of half a dozen houses and a small building with a shaded porch. By then it was near midday. I wiped my forehead and I dismounted in front of the building. "Could you tell me where I might get some water for my horse?" I asked a tanned youngster with shaggy black hair, a boy who might have reached to my waist. "We have some. You will have to lead your horse around the back." He pointed around the left side of the building. "Barbara! A traveler!" Then he was gone. I scratched my head, itchy from the sweat and the heat and the dust, before taking the reins and trudging toward the corner. I stopped suddenly. Around the white-plastered corner of the building were several men armed with swords, waiting, and the fear they would have denied boiled from them. I didn't want to fight, and I didn't want to run. So I stood there, reins in hand, wondering what I would do next. Finally, I reached back and took my staff. That was all I had. I'd never gotten my knife back from the Kieferine soldier and all the confusion with the White Wizard. I spoke loudly. "If I really meant you harm, don't you think I would have fried you where you stood?" Two of them dropped the swords and ran. One shook his head. The biggest charged around the corner, waving the blade in a way that showed he had no idea of how to use it. Thunk. Clang. The sword banged against the wall, and I dropped into the dirt. "Just leave it there," I said tiredly. "All I wanted was some water." "But you're a wizard." He was dark-haired, well-muscled, and wore faded white trousers and a sleeveless shirt. On his feet were sandals, not boots. "Says who? You made enough noise to warn an army." "What are you?" He looked past me to the other man creeping up behind me. I half turned in order to watch them both. The man who had come from the rear did wear boots, the same pale green uniform, including the leather vest. "Me, I'm a woodworker at heart, who happened to displace the prefect of Gallus." Likely story. He was right, unfortunately. In his position, I wouldn't have believed me either. All right, I'm from Recluce, and I created a little too much order in Fenard, partially through woodworking, and now I seem to have every white wizard in Kandar after me. That's not much better. You waited, however, probably for reinforcements. So I wove a shield and disappeared. Then I knocked his sword from his hand while he was gaping. While he was meditating on that, I reappeared, presented the sword back to him with my free hand. It happens to be true, and I'm getting a little tired of playing games. He paled slightly. What do you want? He sheathed the weapon. I'm trying to see if someone I once knew. For the first time, he actually looked at the staff, realizing that it was black. So help me. The man turned even whiter than the wall. He swallowed. Why? I need to know. Is she a black-haired blade that can destroy any man? I haven't thought of Crystal in quite that way. One of them was black-haired and a master with almost any kind of blade, black-eyed, pale-skinned. I turned on the other man, who had edged toward his sword, still lying not that far from my feet. Just hold it right there. Footsteps thudded on the ground. Do I have to disappear again? I asked the young soldier. He shook his head. No, sir. We're supposed to bring anyone from Recluce in to see the sub-commander. Those are standing orders. I should have remembered. The sub-commander was... The sub-commander? She's in charge of training. She does many other things, and she's also the Autarch's champion. Perhaps all that is too wondrous to a magician like you, but she's famed and fabled. It didn't surprise me, not after recalling that the shy lady who had dismembered the apple so quickly, or the woman who had been pressing Gilberto by the time she left Recluce. He's going to Kaifarian to meet the sub-commander. I will be the one to carry out the standing orders and to convey him there. For he has not found our way station, the way station of Pendrell and Chervin. The others stood back, and that was how I met Chervin. Your water, your horse, and Barbara will fix you something to eat. Then Pendrell and you and I will saddle up as we depart for Kaifros. Chervin announced after ushering the half-dozen armed and able-bodied citizens of the little crossroads. That's not a problem? Chervin shook his head. I must only apologize that we did not recognize you. It's been so long. So long? We used to receive pilgrims from Recluce, but seldom do we see them anymore. I nodded, knowing why. Antonin. Gerlach whinnied, as if to ask where the water I had promised. Sir, called a strong feminine voice from the covered portico. The shade kept me from seeing any more than an ample figure. That's Barbara, explained Chervin. I need to water my horse. That's a horse? Asked Barbara, still shrouded by the portico. He's enough of a horse to have carried me through the Eastthorns and the Little Eastthorns. Chervin looked toward the portico with a look I could not quite decipher, but would have embodied the concept of I told you so. So I took the reins and led Gerlach around the building to the watering trough. Chervin frowned, still talking. Unlike some towns I had seen since leaving Recluce, places like Hrisbarg, Freetown, Hewlett, and Weevit, to name a few, the rear of the whitewashed stone and brick buildings was clean in front, similarly shaded to the protruding tile roof. The house design confirmed my feelings that in the summertime, Kaifros was hot indeed. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on any of my videos. See y'all in the next one. Goodbye!